this computer. Hello, everyone. We are here at Challenge 18 for Future Leadership, Innovation, and Sustainability. And we will talk today about goal number 2, zero hunger. So according to goal number 2, it's really about by 2030, there will be, no one will be hungry, no hunger in the world. So this is like, I think we are very far from achieving this, but, I'm always very hopeful and faithful that we can, whatever we dream, we can achieve. And I see like Israeli startups really that are changing the world with food technologies. So I must share with you, and if you want, I can share a video of something that really blew my mind. There is one sentence that I like to share always, like, because all of the challenges, it's about our personal commitment of changing our behaviors, how committed we are to the change. This is where it all starts. So like you see, one small change for you in your food consumption habits, it's one giant change for humanity. Okay, so this is not about reaching the moon, it's really about our own personal commitment. This is not new. Actually, the situation, I don't know, as I know statistics, in Israel, for example, if until recent years, there were like the 10% were the richest and the 10% were the poorest and all the medium class in between, now the situation is getting worse. Like, I mean, it's like 30% are the richest, 30% are the poorest, and the medium class is just the 40% in between. So, on the one hand, more people are becoming rich, but many others becoming poor. Like, and by that I mean, like, under the poverty line means that they're unable to support themselves and their families. In Israel, I know there are over 500,000 poor students. I'm talking about kids. Okay, this is a big number. We are only 8 million in Israel. So think about, this is a big number. This is like unbelievable, almost, right? And like Josun said before, we should not rely on charity as a system. Of course, care and compassion is where we should aim, but just as a stepping stone toward just and integrity and all the beautiful systems that team has shared with us, like liquid democracy and pure democracy, and really how to find means just by exploring, and trial and exploring, but leveraging the power of AI and the internet now. It's possible, and I shared Israeli food tech. We have technologies, we have sustainable agriculture, we have modern technologies for everything from growing to distribution systems to hydroponic and cell cultures for meat. I just saw an Israeli company that they do microalgae that is combine the cells of few herbs that it could fill your entire nutritional consumption in a spoon, and this is really revolutionary. So yeah. So now, what does it mean? Being poor, move to shared, and I loved it, that it's really, you should look at it from different lenses. We don't define it very much the same. And I don't know if anyone of you here actually watched the TED Talk about what we are getting wrong in the fight to end hunger by Jasmine Crowe. But if you did, I'd love to hear your ideas. This was task number 1. Task number 2 was actually avoiding sweets. This is not really directly related to ending hunger, but it does, because all these sweets, like cakes and candies and soft drinks, they are polluting. They actually also a huge problem for us as humanity, because it's about habits, and it's not just about a single person. Imagine about all the battles for sweet drinks, how much they pollute our world. Task 3 was really to challenge yourself to eat vegan or vegetarian, from when we started all the way until you can. I'm challenging myself, actually, I try to eat meat only during the weekends. It's a challenge. Nonetheless, if we all moved to eating healthier, it would not just be better for our bodies, also spiritually, because what we eat is what we are. So this is more or less a summary of the tasks we had in the challenge. What I had to say about goal number 2. And I'd love to hear you next, whomever wants to be next, to share your perspective and what is it that you have to share about goal number 2, zero hunger. Thank you. Please go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. So some reflections. Thanks for the introduction. And I see, I can agree on looking at it through different lenses. I mean, you could come up with all kinds of measurements to sort of end hunger, like, bringing more resources or food towards where there is hunger. But you can also take a look at the systemic, the root causes and solutions. So, and I think that's an interesting way of looking at things. So I think you could do both. It's not either one or the other, probably. So improving local agriculture would be an improvement already. Maybe a basic income would already be a sort of a stepping stone for to reduce hunger, because people can get food, and facilitate the process for growing your own food.
I can share. Sorry to disturb.
No, it's okay.
There is a TED talk about not UBL, but UBS, Universal Basic Services.
Services, exactly. Yeah.
I really loved it, because it starts with the basic. It's like a stepping stone, which the main 4 core services are, like, make sure everyone has housing, transportation is completely free, electricity, and there was something else, education.
Yeah, that's a great one, universal basic services. Thanks for bringing that up, because easily we come up with UBI because it's so common these days, but the services are even more interesting, probably. So thanks for that. But coming back to the other lens of like the root solutions, if you take like maybe 5, 6, 7 steps back, it can start with zero hunger, and it's strongly correlated to zero poverty, or to end poverty, is to start with teaching children critical thinking, system thinking, and ideological learning. Then you can shift towards sort of more empathy-based forms of education that can shift or gear up into forms of governance, where youth are more inclusive, and that can also connect to a form of trauma healing. And then after a few steps, you can see that eventually you can come to sort of the conditions where you can say you have all the ingredients, you have a peaceful surroundings where people live, and then you have the ingredients to sort of systematically solve this this zero, or to get to zero hunger. So that's my reflection.
Do you think that by 2030 we can reach zero hunger? Like at least any country could achieve that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's possible because and history, not that history is sort of the, you know, the something to bring in as proof, but we have seen from historic events, big events, and I'm talking about a few world wars, and also with the latest corona pandemic, we can shift gears quite fast if we want to, if there's a need for it. So the question is, how strong do we feel the need is there? And then I think we can be able to do this by 2030.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Muftu, I'd like to hear you sharing what you wrote as a reply to what Josun had to tell, and then Josun can share her perspective.
Yeah, I like how we are thinking about food. But I love to say, like, this is my observation. I grew up in Africa, in Kenya, for most of my life, maybe 27 years. And I've slept hungry. I've seen people going hungry. I've seen people dying of hunger. And I've seen it in real-time experience, both in my family and in other families. I grew up watching TV, and both on TV, I saw all this happening year round. And I've seen, I felt like we are stuck in a loop, and this loop became my reality. So like, okay, this is people living in dry areas. They will always get hungry and they will die, and they are poor, and because the sun is too much there, and because maybe there are too much Arabs, and because every place there is a desert, I associated these brown lands with scarcity. And then it reached this time when I came to Israel first time, and I went to study agriculture, dryland agriculture in the desert. And I was immersed for 1 year into industrial farming in the desert. And I saw how the desert was converted to make it bloom and produce a lot of food that we were exporting also to different parts of the world, US, Europe. And this brought a lot of hope for me. And then when I went back to my country, I was so much psyched. I met a lot of local farmers and was gathering them together. I remember I even started a company to like bring all this Israeli experience back home, and I was very proud. But what I realized is that I will do nothing without working with my trainers and with the Israeli companies, and with anything I imagined or I saw there, putting it on real ground. I need to either source the resources from the experts who are abroad, or I need to even translate even the language of disseminating information. Everything I realized is like I need to source it there. And all of a sudden I had this epiphany of like realizing like it's like the system is already rigged, like how Robert, you're saying, it's a systemic issue. You know, like I went to study abroad to get the skills, but it's like in the systemic system put in the way that I cannot do anything on the ground without consulting or without importing these skills. And this made me really sad. And on the other face is like growing up, I saw my traditional foods disappearing every day. Now, Africa, in a tribal setup, you'll find people eating corn, eating cucumber, eating tomato, onions, all this global menu type of food. So I felt like all my foods were disappearing all through when I was growing up. And now I even hear the stories. Now people are eating pizza. You can have KFC in Kenya. You can have McDonald's, you can have everything that is happening here in the global north. It's already there, and it's like rising rapidly. And so when I came to Israel the second time, I was lucky. I went to study more into ecological kind of deep thinking, permaculture, ecological design, these ways of farming. And I started understanding that the people in the global north, they are mostly suffering from excess. That's why you find there's high obesity cases, there's high diabetes cases. Most diseases are caused by the too much food. There's like 40% food that is wasted mainly in the global north. And I realized that my people in the global south, they're mostly suffering from scarcity. Their diseases are usually malnutrition, like lack of this, lack of this. And these two things started creating a funny paradox. And I started realizing like maybe it's how we think about food that is wrong, how we relate with food, you know. And also I was in this solutioneering loop. Like I was always thinking like what is the solution? What can we do to do this, to help this situation? Because I don't feel nice like when every time is like, Africans, you're poor, you need to get charity. And it's like these African bodies are seen like an altruistic, I will use the words that you were using, a place to create an altruistic wallet to channel money and people can pay for these other people. I feel like it's not really true, because most people in developing countries, they are growing things that they don't consume. Literally, they are feeding the whole world currently, and they've been feeding the world for the last 200 years. So they're not poor because they don't live in a desert, for example, like where my village is coming from, most places, you know. They grow a lot of food, but most of the food, they have to ship them back in the north, and then the northern people will eat the food, and then the food will be shipped back as international aid, for example, which is sad, but I'm just telling you from my collective experience. This is what I've experienced. This is what I've seen, living both in the north and living both in the south. Yeah, and now I don't feel like I have a solution for this, and it's not like I'm living with the question for the time being. I want to see how the question takes me, you know. But I've noticed like if we decide to grow our own food, assuming people in Europe will start growing their own food. It means when you start growing your own food, you will need less export or import of food. If everybody grows their own food in their place, their unique food that you love, don't even grow the food that everybody is growing. Grow the foods that you love. There are foods that my grandmother loved and used to make these foods for me. Now I don't know even how to call these names to tell even my girlfriend to make it for me, you know? So if everybody makes their own food that they relate with, this is like growing love in your backyard. And when you eat these foods, they make you healthy and they make you have a good gut feeling, and you become even a good person. And also, if you eat healthy, the food that you grow in your place, because it's organic, it also helps cut the budgets for medical and for mental crisis and for all those things, because it's also therapy when you're growing your food. So it comes with an array of 1,000 advantages, just taking a seed and growing. And if you buy from the supermarket, you can eat and seed the same food. And this is how I feel like we can claim back power for both the northern side and the southern side. This is how I feel I'm reconciling this. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. I believe that also maybe Svetlana have something to say in regards, because you know I think one of the main reason also for the war in Ukraine, it's because of the wheat, you know, and they are also the biggest importer of wheat to Europe. Am I correct, Svetlana?
Definitely, you are correct. And I just want to add to move to that, you have mentioned the fact that people in Africa suffer from heat, I mean from hot sun, but people from Ukraine suffer from hunger, not because of sun, not because of natural calamities, but because of the war. And you know, when the war started, it was, I suppose, a worst period in the life of all Ukrainians, and a lot of people died really because of hunger. They didn't have anything to eat. They were hiding in basements, and there were dreadful pictures of dead families when people were afraid just to leave their basement because they were killed immediately without taking into account that, for example, mom just went outside to find a piece of bread, at least, for her child. People died there because they didn't have any water. They didn't have just the necessary provision in the basement, because nobody was ready to spend several days or even weeks in the basement. And if you know that in the eastern and southern parts of Ukraine, a lot of our defenders, soldiers, died because they were surrounded in Mariupol, in Azovstal. It's a huge factory. And our soldiers died also because of lack of food. And you know that there were some moments when they asked our president's permission just to kill themselves because they were not able to bear the hunger anymore. And of course, our president didn't permit them to do it. And when they left this factory, Azovstal, they were taken into captivity to Russia. And one man, he is from my town, he returned from the captivity. He was there more than 4 months. And before the captivity, he weighed more than 120 kilograms. But after the prison, he weighed less than 70 kilograms. So he was thin, he was slim, and he was exhausted, because in captivity in Russia, they were provided just food 2 times a day, but as for dinner, or as for lunch, sorry, it was the most terrific thing, you know, that they gave our prisoners, Ukrainian soldiers, they were given a bowl of soup, and they were given just 30 seconds to eat this soup. But the most dreadful fact was the following, that it was soup which was, the temperature of soup was very high. I mean that it was boiled soup, you know, and they had just 2 variants, just to drink this soup and to damage the throat, or just to stay hungry. And very often they choose the second variant because of the throats were damaged greatly. And after doing this kind of thing, they were not able to eat dry bread because it also damaged their throat as well. And so hunger, it's not just about the people who live in poverty, not just about people who suffer from lack of food, who live in deserts, who don't have any provision, or who live in tribes. But unfortunately, in the modern society, because of such great calamities like wars as we have in Ukraine, so a lot of people suffer from it as well. And you know that when we are filled, when we have tasty breakfast, for example, or a tasty lunch at home, we I can't say that fully we can't understand the people who die from hunger, but we don't understand them. But I just want to add that when our Ukrainian cities were surrounded by Russian soldiers, and in the western part of Ukraine where I live, people knew about this kind of tragedy, and we were, I don't remember, it seems to me that there was a kind of it was Easter, yeah, and you know that Easter is a period, especially in Ukraine, when we have festive tables, I mean festive dinners, yeah, when we invite guests, when we have tasted dishes at on our tables. So a lot of people refused just to celebrate Easter at all. It was like a single day with simple dishes, without any meat, yeah, I mean without caviar, without any luxury, just in order to understand how people in eastern and southern parts of Ukraine suffer from hunger, because it's really a great tragedy. It's a tragedy of my country and the tragedy of all people who understand what is war and what is hunger.
Thank you, Svetlana. Yeah, it's like managing food, you know, land, water, is why, I don't know, countries go to war, and make many people suffer, you know. I mean, and I feel that humanity is changing for you know, it's I feel that, and it's really sad to know that at the same time so many people suffer and die, and so thank you for sharing. Um, yes, maybe just soon you want to have the last words because we are over time. Maybe you want to sum up, share anything from your perspective that, or
Yes,
yeah,
I would love to
just
add
sum
my
up.
view.
Please sum up our conversation. Keep it short because we are over time. So I let you to have the final words.
Well, I think we need to distinguish about the problem of conflict, catastrophe, and so on, and the problem of hunger itself. It's a different problem. Okay. For me, if I focus on hunger in the way I have experienced it, at least I have seen it more than anything in my visits to Africa. I have to say something first. In Africa, where I have been, I cannot tell about whole Africa. Africa is very big and I know a very little part of it. I only know West Africa, okay? And where there I have seen that most people, they do not consume a lot. And most of what they consume, they do not consume like we do with electronic track or a digital track of what you're consuming. So if the government wants to take taxes from people, they need to charge the food. And the food is really expensive. So a kilogram of rice in Gambia is not much cheaper than in Europe, but the income per month, it is much lower in Gambia than in Europe. So comparing, the rice might be like 5 to 10 times more expensive for a Gambian person than for a European person. That is the first thing. The second thing is that comparing Asia and Africa, I have seen that in Africa, another problem, it is that they do not have fridges. So they cannot reserve food. And they do not have normally savings. So they can also not buy in bigger amounts that will allow them maybe to have a cheaper price. They always buy day by day. They buy in very small quantities, and that makes the price higher. Another thing is that cooking. Food needs to be cooked, and cook requires energy. And again, in Africa, a big problem is that most people do not have a proper kitchen. If they do not have a proper kitchen and they need to go to the market every day and they cannot reserve food, that follows into a situation where maybe 5 or 6 people in the family are busy just on providing the food daily, because they need to buy, they need to cook, they need to clean, and they have no conditions to do all 3 things. So what I was thinking as a solution, it is like in every school, in every community, try to put, to fund, to pay for, or gather money to pay for a community kitchen, fully provided, where only maybe in a round shift, the women or the people in the community, I don't need they don't need to be the women, they can be also men, no problem. They are cooking, like maybe 5 people can cook for the whole community one day. So in that case, they could be having regular meals for very low price, because there is a lot of saving energy, saving work. The people that is not cooking, they could be working in something different. And more than this, and this is copying a model that a friend of mine is developing in Guinea-Bissau. She is creating a program where the people is supporting her to ensure for every kid every day a plate of rice with moringa, which is a very richful plant with a lot of vitamins. And then all kids in the school are having ensured nutrition every day. And the ones providing the moringa are the women in the community. They have a small business on this. Half of the production they sell to the school, and they have then half of the production left to commercialize. So they have a small business, and at the same time, they are providing healthy food to the kids every day at the school. So I think we need to go for similar programs like this, where we are not thinking only in the food, but we are thinking on how to provide the food in a proper way with the less, with the minimal cost in terms of working hours and in terms of energy. And in terms of getting the main ingredients to a better price, because they buy it as a community, and they can keep whatever they have in good conditions with the proper fridge and everything. So it is, for me, in Africa, a big problem is that a lot of the work capacity is being used just to cook and clean and do the shopping every day. And they have no way to escape that, because they do not have a kitchen. And again, this creates a much higher price for each meal. So it is it's a very bad cycle that we need to escape. And for me, the only solution is to create like mobile kitchens, or maybe communal kitchens in the schools or some places like that, where we can ensure that the community is arranging themselves to have regular meals every day in a lowest possible price in terms of working hours and energy too. And on the other hand, listen to Mufutu, I was I was pointing on something. When we talk about this, we should try not to use ever the word everybody, and instead of each one, because nothing will start with everybody. Whatever we want to start, it needs to start by each one. Each one that wants to start can start. And then if we create plans that can be started with each one, or one at least, they can start and they can be expanded, replicated, and improved. But with the time, maybe reach everybody. But if we think about if everybody do this, if everybody do that, is this the same as saying nobody is going to do anything?
Yeah. I think there is more than one solution. I think it's for each and every community, please, for each and every community to find their own solutions according to their needs and what they find most suitable. And I think it's, as I said, like one small change in our food consumption habits as communities, it's a giant step for humanity. I will let move to maybe to say a few words, but really quick because we have to finish. And yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. I just wanted to respond that when I say everyone, it's part of my dream. It's because I think that globalization is the thing that is creating all this chaos, all this war of problems with food and stuff. I will just invite you to go to imagine, like, tomorrow if you wake up and everybody in the world looks like you, eat like you, speak like you, do everything exactly the same like you do. How will life be? How fun will life be? How will traveling be? Where will you travel if every place looks like Europe? If every building looks like the Queen's backyard? If every food looks like the Queen's food? So what I was inviting us is in the space of activating collaborative abundance with infinite diversity. It's like a probiotic solution and not antibiotic solution, you know? Like, is this solution that you're proposing for Africa, for Europe, for Southeast Asia, is it increasing diversity? Is it calling these people back to their place and making them unique in their place and to embody the land of their place and speak their own unique language and still thrive like all other places? So this is the invitation I was saying for everyone. It's my dream. Like, I hope everyone will start changing from their backyard. Instead of thinking of how to save Africa, think about your neighbor. When was the last time you sit with them and shared a meal together? There's also a kind of hunger that comes in different layers. There's a spiritual hunger, there's a soul hunger and this stuff. But it's always easy for us to point. There is where the change needs to happen, and we forget that the three fingers are always pointing at us.
Beautiful.
No, Futu, I was thinking about this because indeed today I was booking a flight to travel to Africa in May, and I want to try this in the communities in Africa that are linked to my heart because I consider them my family. So this is I consider them my home also because I love them. So and I love them not generally as humans. I know their faces and names. So it's a different issue. In my country, in reality, we don't have a problem with hunger. We have a problem with excess of food, with bad nutrition, with speculation on food. For example, I will tell you a sample of what is happening in Spain. In Spain, a working hand is kind of expensive, and we have a lot of citrus fruits like lemons and oranges, and many of them are falling on the floor and they are not being picked because we are receiving oranges from Caribbean areas and other places where people working under very bad conditions are picking the fruits for very low prices. And those oranges are the ones that we are consuming because they are arriving in our markets cheaper than our own oranges. So crazy is the world. So I agree a lot with you that we need to ensure that the food is not traveling. The food needs to be consumed locally and produced locally more and more. But there are a lot of people already in all places in Europe trying to produce their own food and getting consciousness about this. And really, we do not have a real problem with hunger. We have a problem with waste of food and with very bad way of marketing the food, like speculating and trying to find the cheapest price, even if that means that we are buying the food from places where people is working under almost slavery conditions, and people is not thinking about that. So I don't think we have the same problem. I mean, when I think about hunger, I really think about people that is going to sleep without having any food in the day, or is having no access to food, or is having real problems to conserve the food. Here in my country, we have food banks. Also, people is donating food, and if you are on hunger, you can go to the food bank and you can have food. It's not a problem to have food. Our problem is more to waste food than to have food. So I think it's totally different problem and need to have a totally different approach. I mean, here, if we need to care about food, we need to care about stop wasting food and stop consuming food that is traveling 3,000 kilometers to reach our place when we have the same production here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for all of you. Yeah, this was a really knowledgeable and profound conversation. And I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, same time. So thank you and see you.